Greetings, salutations, and welcome to After Action. I'm your host, Patrick Kreeger, and I'm joined, once again, by Christopher Gillen.
Man, it feels like I never leave this place.
So, today we watched Shark Attack 5, or as it's better known by its working title, Thunderball.
Sure did. The fourth of the James Bond movies.
Indeed, indeed. Now,
And there were quite a lot of sharks in it. It may as well have been
Shark Attack.
Shark Attack 5. There were lots of sharks in this, shark attacks in the movie.
This is true. We'll get into the sharks when the time comes, but to start off, watch, don't watch.
Ugh. Sorry, yawn. So unprofessional. Watch.
Fair enough. I would say the same. I'm currently pulling up Thunderball's IMDb.
I told you I was going to say watch for every Bond movie, and I'm going to spend the next hour justifying it.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, this Bond film has, there's a certain thing that's particular about this Bond film that we'll talk about a lot. That is the thing that recommends it, or makes it stand out from the other Bond films, or at least from the ones that we've reviewed so far.
And we will. But first, the description. This fourth James Bond installment finds the world threatened with destruction. Sean Connery's fourth turn as the indestructible agent, 007, finds him in pursuit of Largo, Spectre's mastermind. Largo has hijacked 2 atomic warheads and a NATO jet during a NATO training mission. He threatens to nuke 2 English or American cities if $280 million in ransom is not paid by the British by a certain date. Based on a screenplay by Jack Whittingham and an original story by Kevin McCloy, Jack Whittingham, and Ian Fleming.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this is that Thunderball was supposed to be the first Bond movie that was made.
Okay.
The reason it wasn't is because there was this huge legal dispute, I guess, between these 2 screenwriters and Ian Fleming. The Thunderball is one of the Bond books. And what the lawsuit was about was that these guys had written a screenplay, or tried to write a screenplay, or started to write a screenplay, an original screenplay, but based on the James Bond character, it was, the article I read about it was unclear whether or not they did this with Ian Fleming's blessing. But then Ian Fleming wrote Thunderball, and these guys sued him, basically saying that he stole the idea for the plot of Thunderball from their original screenplay. The only thing that they were using was the James Bond character.
Yeah.
And they were writing an entirely new story, and then apparently Ian Fleming wrote the book and stole their story.
It is a fairly unique story.
Kinda. Right. And so the rights were tied up in legal battles for years and years and years, and that's why this was not the first movie that was made. It was supposed to be.
Okay. It's interesting
that finally got settled somehow. I don't know whether or not. I don't know which way it got resolved, who was in the right or whatever. But it did eventually get made.
And made well.
Right. I mean, that's what happens when you more than double the budget of the previous 3 films.
Combined, I think.
No, not quite. But not combined, but because they had
1, 2, and 3.
So they have $5 million, and this was $9 million.
Okay.
So not quite doubled the first 3 films combined.
But close.
Yeah, pretty close. And it raked in 140 something million at the box office.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Wow.
quite the blockbuster.
Blockbusters were much more of a thing in the past. I think, like, they talk about Jurassic World as being one of the greatest films ever made in terms of the money that it made, right? But didn't it cost something like $500 million to make and brought in only like $1.2 billion?
I have no idea.
I know it brought in over $1 billion. But I think it cost something like 500 or 700 million to make.
Speaking of things that cost a lot to make, I read an article today that James Cameron says the Avatar sequels have finished production.
Wow.
Yeah.
Considering this is like the first I've heard about it since like rumors, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So they shot all the sequels at once?
I guess.
Huh, cool. I actually way prefer that, but that's way off Bond. It's not like we don't get sidetracked on this podcast.
I know, right? That's definitely a thing we've done before.
I do try, hopefully, to leave that to the end, though we might bring it back. Anyway. So, our cold open.
Which has now been a thing.
Which is now...
will pretty much remain a thing for the rest of the Bond films.
Okay, I was going to say I don't remember what happened, and then I do remember we open on a funeral.
Yeah. You open on a funeral, and it is, Bond is sort of like overlooking this funeral, supposedly for a Spectre
Count of some sort.
agent or something, and turns out that the agent is not actually dead, and he's at his own funeral disguised as the widow.
Yeah, which was weird. Does that mean he killed his wife and she's in the casket?
Or did he have a wife to begin with? We don't know.
But we do know what makes him unladylike.
Yeah, he opens his own door.
How dare he?
Right, and that's only where the misogyny in this movie begins.
Oh, that was the best part about the film is, so, it starts off with our hero attending a funeral, correct? And then he follows the widow home. At this point, we don't know she's a man. And then he just sucker punches her.
Right, yeah, without seeing this person's face. He knocks on the door, and who you assume is a woman, a grieving woman, opens the door. Her face is covered by a black veil, and Bond just sucker punches her, and then says the line, "You shouldn't have opened your own door," or something like that. But yeah, you're just sitting there shocked to all hell because Bond just sucker punches this grieving widow who's just come home from the funeral. Oh man,
our hero.
Yeah,
our hero.
So then he
engages in fisticuffs.
And there's some chair throwing and some vase breaking.
Sped up chair throwing.
Yeah, there's some sped up chair throwing. And then Bond gets hit by a fire poker.
Yeah.
And
there wasn't a poker joke.
No.
In any sense of the connotation.
No, there wasn't. At all. There should have been. Mm-hmm. It would have been real fitting for the movie.
Yes, it would have.
Lots of jokes.
Lots of sexual jokes.
Yeah. So he wins the fight, and then two of the henchmen are trying to break in the door. So he's going to leave out the other door, but he takes the time to do what?
Throw tulips on the body.
Right.
Why?
No idea.
Now I thought it was setting up for a pun, where's the widow? Well, I think he's pushing up daisies. Well, tulips, actually.
Right, but there's literally not a line of dialogue for the rest of the scene.
He just looks confused.
It's just Bond going out onto this balcony type thing and escaping with a jetpack.
The first use of a jetpack in this film.
First use of a jetpack in this film, but not the last.
Indeed. Is the first use of a jetpack in a film?
That's a wonderful question.
It might be.
Let's look that up.
The thing that I thought
It can't be.
It can't
There
be.
has to be something like Swiss Family Robinson-esque that's pre this.
I know that they had one at the opening of Tomorrowland, just so you know. But what I found really interesting about the jetpack scene is it shows exactly how useful a jetpack is. You can get from point A to point B in a very quick period of time in an unusual direction, accompanied by a ton of noise and wind, and not actually going very far.
Accompanied by a ton of noise and wind.
Well, and that's what happens.
You're not wrong.
And I do love that this is when we get the return of his Aston Martin.
Yeah.
With
this
the bulletproof shield.
The first time that a car is reused from a previous Bond film.
A reoccurring character.
Sort of the first thing that the thing that made the DB5 iconic as far as Bond is concerned. That's always been a thing that the Bond movies have always been about the car. Or it's the lore is that Bond movies always have a cool car in them, but this is the first time where you really witness that. Like the Sunbeam in Dr. No was cool.
Yes.
And then
but it wasn't a spy car, it was just a cool car.
Right, it was just a cool car that he had. And the DB5 in Goldfinger is like the spy car, and it's like made a big deal about that being a spy car.
There's no car?
There's not really a car. He sort of gets driven everywhere in From Russia with Love. He doesn't really do his own driving anywhere. But yeah, I mean, this is they don't make a big deal about the car being a spy car in this film, but it's clearly shown to be. It just is the same DB5 that he had in Goldfinger, and I think it's sort of the thing that made that a trope as far as the Bond movies are concerned, is the reuse of the Aston Martin DB5.
Does he use it always? Because I know he uses it in Skyfall.
He doesn't always use the DB5, no, but from here on out, it's pretty much always going to be an Aston Martin.
Okay.
When Aston Martin started introducing new DBs, pretty sure there's a DB7. There's definitely a Vanquish in one of the Daniel Craig films. The DB12? Is that when? 2012 is when the Vanquish came out, I think?
You know, it's funny. We were talking during the film about my fascination with cars. My fascination with cars does not extend to Aston Martin. I don't know why.
It's because you're wrong. That's why.
No, you're right. They're gorgeous. But I don't know. There's just not something about them for some reason.
Jeremy Clarkson says the Aston Martin DB7 is the best looking car that's ever been made, and he's 100% correct.
I was going to say, I wouldn't disagree.
Yeah.
Other than possibly a 57 Chevy Bel Air.
Those are good looking.
But there's a
the
difference.
thing about the Aston Martins nowadays is they don't really stand out. Sorry, tangent. Top Gear tangent. They don't stand out because they own or are owned by the same people that own Jaguar. And all of those bodies are the same now. The Jag F-Type, yeah, and the DB12 have the same body.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's just what's under the hood that's different.
By the way, on the subject of Top Gear, I was once in a restaurant where they played the entire Top Gear theme song, just in the background.
You mean Jessica by the Allman Brothers? That's like a super popular song that did not come from Top Gear, that was written like 30 years before Top Gear was a thing.
Now, the best part about this was we all recognized that it was a real song of some sort that took forever to play. But everyone in the restaurant agreed that it was definitely the intro to The Tonight Show. Which it isn't.
It is not, yeah, but pretty similar.
But that was the best we could get. So, cold opening, funeral, beats up a lady who's not a lady, and gets away with a woman in a car.
Yeah.
And goes... Well, then we cut to our Bond girl opening thing. Best one yet. The flutter kicks are out of time with the music.
I was going to say, I disagree.
Okay.
For me, the best one is
From Russia with Love.
From Russia with Love, with the gypsy belly dancing.
That one was good. Goldfinger sucked.
Goldfinger's interesting because it's like there's nothing particularly artsy about it. Like in the first one, in Dr. No, it's like some just like silhouettes or colors or whatever of a woman dancing, and it's like clearly like made for this opening credits scene. Yeah. And then From Russia with Love is this belly dancing thing, and the credits are projected onto the woman's body, and it's supposed to be this, it's kind of erotic, and it's like clearly made just for this thing. And then in Goldfinger, you have like the gold painted ladies, and again, like stuff projects scenes from the movie projected
That was
onto
distracting.
the body. It was distracting, but that was clearly shot for an intro sequence. Like,
Yes.
that's the reason they made that. This was just a bunch of people swimming around underwater.
Yes, and one of them gets murdered.
Right.
It's
And
weird. Why is
it doesn't feel to me like this. It seems to me like there was just B-roll
Okay, I would agree
because
with
there's
you.
a lot of scenes of people swimming around underwater in this movie.
I will agree with you, but I will say 3 things about this. 1, why do you have your sexy, naked swimming Bond lady that we actually don't know is naked get murdered on camera, like as part of your semi-erotic intro? 2, you're right that it is B footage-esque, and they could have done a lot more with it. They could have done more interesting things like they do later in the series. But I guess this is kind of the start of it, and that's kind of what I was going for. Is this is the first Bond intro that felt like a Bond intro to me. That's kind of what I was getting at. Is
Sure.
that I'm used to Bond intros being based on what little I know from pop culture and whatnot. Nude women in the theme of whatever the movie is. So this movie taking place a lot underwater, women swimming made sense. Secondly, they should have just had the women swimming and slowed down the footage. The little flutter kicks that they constantly do annoy the hell out of me. And I don't know why. I'm abnormally annoyed at it.
I know why, because you said it during the intro sequence. Because they're out of time with the music. Sung wonderfully by Mr. Tom Jones,
Indeed.
by the way. And the last episode we did on Goldfinger, I was talking about how the woman who sang the intro almost passed out while singing the last note. Well, Tom Jones apparently said that the same thing happened to him while singing the intro to Thunderball, and you can totally hear it when he's the last note he holds in the intro, and it fades out, and it's like you can tell he is really struggling to hold that note. And I thought of it immediately when we heard it. It was like, yep, that's Tom Jones passing out in the recording studio.
Also, what is a Thunderball? I'm coming at you like a Thunderball.
I assume it is a slang term for an atomic bomb?
Maybe. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. They were talking about it like everyone knows what a Thunderball is.
Right.
And I'm like, no. When I think of Thunderball, I think of code words. I don't think of something that exists.
Right.
Or maybe ball lightning. But that's beside the point.
So according to Wikipedia, since I've done my research now, I do believe that this is the first movie that a jetpack ever appeared in.
I could imagine that.
Although jetpacks were featured in 2 episodes of the original animated television series Johnny Quest a year before this.
Oh, yes. When... yes.
And the original Lost in Space TV series started the same year as this, and they use jetpacks all the time in that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, depending on when the episodes were released and when during the year this movie was released, it may have happened in that first. But it does seem to me like this is the first time that it happened in a movie.
And it was a real jetpack. Like, even if they didn't actually use the jetpack to fly, it was a fully functional and realistic jetpack. Which is interesting. Like, you would think in a spy film, they would make, this sleek, like, elegant little thing that he could use that wouldn't really work. But, no, they actually went all aboard with the kind of awkward
Just large,
thing.
weird jetpack
Yeah.
thing.
And I just have this vision of Bond being incredibly reckless in general. And I just love the concept of Bond using this, like what amounts to, in today's money, like $1 million machine, to fly from 100 yards away and then just throws it, into the bushes for some kid to find. But no, he actually takes the time to put it in, the trunk of his car. So I guess Q Branch will be happy about that.
Right. All right, so Bond escapes in the DB5 spy car.
Yep.
And then you go to the Spectre meeting.
Yeah. Where they talk about very small sums of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not 1965. It wasn't small sums of money, but
Yeah, I love. We got $200,000 from all of the drug dealings in the United States.
Right.
It was actually $2 million for all the drug dealings in the United States, but
still,
yeah. But one of them,
it's like a single drug deal in the United States.
one of them was making comments about like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was like $100,000.
Right. Yeah, they you get the thing where number one like presses a button and the chair sinks into the floor and kills somebody for being disappointing, which is parodied hilariously in Austin Powers.
No,
Almost the exact same thing.
this is something I'll say about this. I just like the trope of the mastermind killing off one of his employees. Because eventually, who the hell are you going to get to work for you if you keep doing that sort of junk?
Right.
This time, I agree with it. Because the guy was stealing.
Right.
So, like, that makes sense.
Right.
I don't know. That was a more reasonable reason to kill one of your underlings than, oh no, you just barely failed. You know?
Right. Bond got lucky and...
Yeah. Speaking of which, Bond gets lucky. Oh.
Bond gets lucky so much in this movie.
Yeah.
Favors all the sex in this movie.
That's not what I meant, but that's true too.
Yeah. All right. So, Spectre number 2.
Yep.
Emilio Largo.
Eye Patch, McEye Patch.
Eye Patch, Mick Eye Patch. No, we already have a Mick name. Jamaican McThird Wheel. There isn't really a Jamaican
There is
McThird Wheel.
not. Well, kind of the Eye Patch guy.
Yeah, Emilio Largo kind of is Jamaican McThird Wheel at some point.
At points, yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
He lays out this plan to steal these atomic bombs from NATO
Yes.
and ransom them back to the MI6.
Yeah, that is the most confusing thing. They steal these bombs, which are indeed British bombs. They make a point about that. On a British aircraft. On a training mission for NATO. Which makes sense, because it's a British aircraft, and they're like doing hands across the seas and all that. What I don't get is exactly why the Americans, and frankly the Russians and the Red Chinese, as they're so fond of calling them, why they wouldn't help as well. Because loose nukes aren't something people want.
Yeah, but it's a Cold War.
I get that. But, at that point you say, hello, Dmitri.
Also, they're not part of NATO, so why would they care?
Because they're nukes.
Why would they be involved?
I don't know. At least, hey guys, can you spare a few $100,000? Because, there's...
No, you wouldn't tell them at all, because that'd be super embarrassing, and you'd lose all the face. Because you know what would happen was Nikita Khrushchev would go, you guys, they lost nukes, look how irresponsible they are to the entire world community, and the whole community would go, yeah, you're right.
You know what? That's actually a really fair point.
And then we'd be speaking Russian.
Da, comrade.
No Russian.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that is a good point, and one they didn't make in the film.
Right.
So, I don't know. I found that weird. But yeah, he lays out that plan for the nukes, and everyone seems to agree. Good plan. Good
Yep.
plan. By the way, this is all taking place in Paris, apparently the capital of the evil empires of Spectre, and for whatever reason.
In France.
And France. I mean, that's secondary.
Yeah. Yeah, they lay out this plan that they're going to have one of their people, like, have facial reconstructive surgery to look like one of the people who's on the plane.
That's the weird thing, is that guy says that this took 2 years.
Yeah, because he had to, like, learn his accent or something.
He had to learn his accent, he had to get the facial reconstruction surgery, he had to learn how to fly.
Yeah.
There was all these things he had to do.
Right.
Was that just something they were doing in general, and then this is when they were going to use him? Or did they really, like, is this a flashback to, they're planning a NATO meeting 2 years from now, we better be ready?
don't think so. I think it's meant to be. This plan has been in the works for 2 years.
Okay. It's just
I'm willing to give Spectre the benefit of the doubt because it makes them seem more menacing.
That's true, and that's actually what we need from them.
Right.
We then cut to Bond in...
Well, okay, so he's having this... The place where he's having this facial reconstructive surgery done is at this physiotherapy, day spa, rehab...
It's a Swiss physical therapy thing. This is like a common thing in, like, what do you call it? Sitcoms from the 90s, where people will go off to Switzerland for rehabilitation.
Sure. And James Bond just happens to also be there.
Yes.
Like,
Because of
MI6 doesn't know about this. NATO doesn't know about this plan. Bond just happens to be there because of the operation that he's shown having in the cold open. And when he got hit by a poker.
Yes, that put Bond out of commission and damaged his spine.
Right. So yeah, Bond is getting physical therapy for his back. He forces himself upon the physical therapist.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
Right.
Like, she's fighting him the whole time. And
Yeah.
he's just like, oh, man.
Yeah.
That was uncomfortable.
It was pretty rapey.
Yeah, and she keeps talking about not feeling safe. In Bond's defense?
No. There is no defense.
Well, this is after. Then she starts acting coy. Beforehand, she is having none of this, and he's...
This goes back to
Oh,
the
man.
trope of Bond being physically intimate with women who aren't interested in him, and then they're suddenly in love with him.
Yes.
She's clearly uninterested, just trying to do her job. She's a physical therapist. She's an attractive blonde woman in the 60s.
Fair
and
enough.
she's practicing medicine way ahead of her time. And good for her.
Not only that, she runs the place.
Right.
Yeah, she's the head of operations at this physical therapy place.
Right. And Bond,
Max on her.
Max on her.
While she's fighting back vigorously.
Right. She's like vigorously trying to fight out of his grip.
Our hero, gentleman.
And then turns out she likes it.
No, not then.
Not then. But, I mean...
Eventually.
This is what I'm saying, though. She's uninterested. Bond kisses her. Now she's interested.
And I was actually talking with you about this while we were watching the film. The scene with Pussy Galore, he begins to rape her. And then she gives in. Before the actual rape takes place. So, like, that's almost forgivable, in a way. She not only goes into the event fighting, she fights through the event.
Fights
and then
out of it.
And then after, she's still ticked off.
Right. And then in a later scene, she's all acting super coy about it.
Yeah, like, oh...
Because he's still trying to get with her. Let's be very clear about that. This is what separates this movie from the other Bond films that we've seen so far, is that it was overtly sexual.
Yes, throughout the whole film.
Like, throughout the entire film, Bond is just trying to bang everything that breathes, pretty much.
Yes.
And just innuendos left and right, and just not even trying to be subtle.
No,
Like,
not
he
at
sometimes is with the other women in previous films. Like, this is pretty much him just saying, hey, I want you. And then most of the women going, yeah, all right.
Yeah, except
Because-
this one.
Because James Bond, the man every man wants to be, every woman wants to be with.
Apparently.
Except this one until...
Well, first we mentioned that his spine was injured, right?
Right.
So she puts him on a device they call the rack, a spine stretcher. She ties him up securely and says...
Now I feel safe.
The first time I felt safe all day. That's when she first starts playing coy.
Right.
Up until that point, she is having none of his advances, and frankly is still having none of his advances. She's just being funny at this point.
Right. But clearly she's into it because she's had intimate physical contact with Bond, and every woman who has had that is immediately in love with him.
Except, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay, so then
Some guy walks in.
right. It's
Is it just some random guy?
yeah, so it's you see the guy first, it's the guy with the tattoo on his
Yeah.
hand. And then so Bond goes and searches his room,
Yep.
which is adjoined by the room of the Spectre agent who's getting facial reconstruction surgery. And the Spectre agent sees Bond snooping in the room.
Yes.
And so then the guy with the tattoo comes into the room and sets the rack speed or
On a
whatever it
fatal
is
setting.
to the fatal setting, which
Why?
of course it has that, because why wouldn't you have this machine for back injuries
Yes.
be fatal?
That was dumbfounding to me.
Oh man.
And Bond's just taking it. He is just going. He's resigned himself to this.
He's pretty much he yells a little bit, but he doesn't really try to. You don't really see him struggling to like break out or anything.
Yeah.
Basically, what happens is he blacks out more or less,
Yeah.
but is saved by the physical therapist woman, who he then blackmails into having sex with him in the steam room.
Yep.
Because or else he will tell the owners of the place that about the malfunction, quote unquote, with the machine.
Yeah, and
she like doesn't even a little bit try to say no.
Yeah, she just goes along with
She's
it.
just like, well, she goes, "Oh, you don't mean," and he goes, "Yeah, I do," and she's like, "Well, all right."
This is what's happening now. This
Because
is my
every
life.
woman who has physical intimate contact with James Bond falls in love with James Bond.
I also want to point out that she blames James Bond for the setting. She
Yeah.
says, "You must have hit it."
Right.
How?
Yeah, he was literally strapped in. There was no way he could possibly have touched that.
After their fornication, he then goes off into the saunas in another place and cooks the man who tried to break his back, and it's not known whether he dies or not.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia article right now on the
Yeah.
plot, and
Okay.
it doesn't actually say.
Yeah, I would imagine that he does have to die because he doesn't show up again. At least not that I know of.
Right. It
Also, saunas with a fatal setting. There you go.
Oh wait, no, he doesn't die.
Oh, okay. He
Because
doesn't
that's the guy who that's the guy who attacks Bond when he's driving
Oh.
after that.
Okay.
So he's in like some type of heat therapy thing, and Bond like locks him in there with like an iron rod or something. You never actually see the guy get out.
No, he just turns up the temperature. Bond just turns up the
Oh,
temperature.
I thought he saw something where he put it through the doors
Oh,
or something like
yeah,
that. He takes
yeah.
the bar and puts it through the.
I thought you were implying that he put something in the chamber with
Oh
him.
no, like
yeah, he just sealed him in the chamber.
Seals him in the chamber. But yeah, that guy gets out. You never see him get out,
Yeah.
but that's who attacks him when he's driving.
Oh, okay.
Afterwards. Meanwhile, while this is happening, while Bond's having his blackmail fornication session and torturing other guests at the physical therapy place.
And he doesn't really know trying to kill him.
Right.
And if he did, why the hell didn't he just kill the guy?
Right. You're shown the heist of
Not quite.
the atomic bombs.
There's the Italian sex scene, which is important to mention. There's this Italian man having sex with this, well, not actually having sex with, but like implied that it had happened recently or want to happen in the future.
Oh, right, the thing where he talks about the 2 years and
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
And then he gets killed as he's leaving the apartment, which is hilarious because I just love the concept that they probably just shot it with a mirror for a moment.
Right. No, so this is what I mean. This is when the heist happens because that's
Yes,
the guy whose
yes.
place that
Sorry,
the
I didn't-
other guy took.
I just didn't consider that part of the heist because it's the preamble to the heist, but yeah, it's part of the heist.
Yeah, he's the guy that they were taking his place, the pilot or whatever.
Yes. Sorry.
So that happens.
Yeah, which I don't know. Then the replacement Italian man threatens to not do it if they don't pay him more. Which I'm like, really, guy? This woman just killed the man she quote unquote loves. Do you really think you're walking out of this if you don't do exactly what they say?
Right.
Like, you're not in a position to negotiate.
Right.
The hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was obvious that man was going to die.
Right.
They show the heist.
They do show the heist.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's on a plane.
Yes.
It's a cool heist.
Okay.
All heists on planes are cool. Couldn't name another one, but they're all cool.
I can think of more rock concerts on aircraft than I can think of heists on aircraft.
Wasn't there a Harrison Ford movie where there was like they hijacked Air Force One? That was kind of a heist. Was it called Air Force One?
Yeah, it was. There's also that scene in Prison Break, right?
I never watched Prison Break.
The movie with Nicolas Cage? Where they break out of the plane.
I've seen National Treasure.
Yeah. Well, in that film, he didn't steal the Declaration of Independence.
Sorry, Internet. I'm not on the one true God Nicolas Cage bandwagon. It's just... Anyway.
Remember, go out there and see Mandy. It's important. I have no idea what it's about.
So, they're on the plane, and they say, you know, like, everybody put your masks on, your oxygen masks on, and then they gas everybody except the one guy.
Yeah, he has his own independent air supply.
Right. So everybody's dying, and he
flies below the radar.
Flies below the radar, literally. There's like a scene where they talk about we can't detect this plane because it's below our radars.
Yeah. Note, British still using feet.
Yeah.
They said below 300 feet.
They sure did. Then he lands it in the water.
Impressively so. I didn't think you could do that in anything other than a sea dart.
Well, apparently you can do it in whatever this plane was.
Which Vulcan.
We could... Was that what it was?
Yeah.
I was going to say, we couldn't figure it out at the time.
When I was looking at this thing, it was really interesting because it looked to me like a fighter aircraft of some sort. They were just, implying was bigger than it was. But then I looked into it, and sure enough, not only was it a Vulcan, but they got all sorts of help from the Royal Air Force to build a replica of this thing that they could crash and submerge and all that jazz.
In the water. That's cool, actually.
Because it was a one-to-one replica.
Sure.
Which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And you can still dive on it, by the way.
Oh, cool. It's still there.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Yeah.
If anybody who wants to take a vacation to Nassau in the Bahamas.
If that's where it was actually shot.
If that's where the movie was shot. That's where the movie's set. So it might be there. Let us know.
Just dive the ocean randomly.
Just dive there. Let us know. Put it in the comments. Anyway. So they submerge. They sink the plane.
Yes.
And then camouflage it, which was really cool.
Yeah, I like that they actually thought of that detail.
Kind of a major plot point in the movie, because then the rest of the movie is, well, they send their blackmail message to ostensibly NATO, but you only ever see MI6 characters.
This is true.
So it's to MI6, and then the plot of the movie is then they send Bond, and the CIA is involved trying to find this plane, and they just repeat over and over and over that they can't find it.
Yeah.
They don't know where it is. They can't see it. There's explicit lines where they say, like, the Air Force covered 250 miles out from Nassau, like, they didn't see it. And then something else about, like, well, if the boat was involved, its range is this, so it has to be inside that.
90 or 95 miles.
90 miles or something like that. It was, so what happens is they MI6 gets this blackmail message. They want however much
200
money
some million
in,
dollars.
in diamonds.
They don't mention that at first.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
They do mention that later. It's
Yes.
explicitly in diamonds.
They say if you agree to our terms to like 200 or 280 million dollars in a form to be determined,
Okay.
then make Big Ben ring 7 times at 6 p.m. I do want to point out, though, by the way, knockoff Italian man did indeed get stabbed.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah.
I do love the dead air.
He does get stabbed.
Yeah.
I didn't know who you were talking about when you said knockoff Italian man.
Well, this time he was literally knockoff Italian man.
Yeah, he is literally knockoff Italian. He's a knockoff of the Italian man. That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. They so they send Bond.
Mm-hmm.
My Six sends Bond to the Bahamas.
Yeah, he has 4 days to figure this out.
Right.
Because he's tracking down the sister of the Italian man.
Right.
Who's in NASA.
Right.
And
We forgot to mention that Bond finds the body.
Yeah, we also forgot to mention that Bond attempts to throw his hat, but doesn't get to because they moved the hat rack.
Because they moved the hat rack, so Patrick didn't get his hat trick.
Yeah. Well, we
You
did.
did get the hat rack hat trick. You didn't get the, I forget what 4 goals is called.
Turkey?
No. Something
Bamboozle?
else. I can't remember. 2 is
Strike?
2 is a brace. 3 is a hat trick. 4 is...
Super Bowl.
No, stop. It's not a superb owl.
I haven't heard that one before.
Really? That's a subreddit. Or shout out r/superb owl.
I would really hope that that's actually just superb owls.
It is.
Like, really?
It's spelled Super Bowl, all one word, and it's just pictures of owls. It's incredible.
Huh. You know,
And it blows up every year or in the first weekend of February when the Super Bowl is. It's amazing.
off topic, but on the topic of owls. You know that joke that's going around right now about you could get millennials to go to Hooters if it had owls in it?
I've not heard that, but it's totally true.
Yeah, that's a joke going around, and yes, I do agree with that. But, you know...
That's because you're a millennial, and you would definitely go to anywhere if there were owls there.
More or less. But that was actually a joke done on Sabrina, like, over a decade ago. Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Jeez. The Other Realm Hooters was a restaurant run by owls, and they gave flap dances.
That's amazing.
They make that joke.
Anyway, so Bond goes to the Bahamas to find this...
The Bahamas and Jamaica.
Right. Patrick literally said something during the film like, I can't believe we're back here for the third time or something like that. I was like, what are you talking about?
For some reason.
Because Patrick thinks that Miami, Jamaica, and the Bahamas are all the same place.
Are they not? Internet,
No.
prove me wrong. Okay, Chris, I know you don't listen to the podcast all that much, but I also made the claim that Arkansas had access to the sea.
Oh my god.
Now, they do through the Mississippi, but I actually had to kind of look just to make sure.
Stop.
Geography is not one of our strong suits.
It's one of my strong suits. It's not one of yours. Anyway, point is, Bond, Bahamas,
Yes.
and he makes contact, shall we say,
They make that joke a lot.
with the Bond girl,
Now,
Domino,
and how does he know that that's the right girl?
because it's on her ankle bracelet.
Well, yes.
Is the quote that he tells her.
But I was going to make he was getting the comment about the 2 moles on her thigh.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, was my headcanon for a while as to why she was called Domino.
Yeah.
But turns out that's not the case.
That's not the case. No, so he's on a boat with a CIA operative.
Yes.
The other woman in the film is the CIA operative.
I'm like, really? He shows up to pick up a woman with another woman whom he's already picked up.
Right. So
But
they're
it's the
like
CIA woman.
they stalk her when she's scuba diving or something, or find her boat while she's scuba diving, and then Bond helps her out of being stuck in the rocks or something.
Oh, yes. We need to talk about turtle endangerment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
There was turtle endangerment in this film. There's just a woman hanging on to this poor sea turtle that.
You can reconnect to Wi-Fi from your Google Home app.
What's going on? God, is that you?
So unprofessional. Anyway,
We're gonna leave that in.
no, fair enough. She's just hanging on to this sea turtle.
That looks
and
legitimately scared.
we can't make the disclaimer that no sea turtles were harmed in the making of this film because we don't know that for sure.
This is true. We actually, I'm trying to make it a point to look for that at the credits. You know, no animals were harmed in the making of this picture, but I forgot what I was looking for. I'm watching the credits. There's a reason I'm watching the credits, but why? So they definitely hurt animals in this film. I'm going to put that out there because later in the film they show animals getting hurt for sure, real animals. But didn't they do that before?
They?
Yeah, they actually shoot a shark.
Do they?
They do. They shoot a shark twice with things that don't have tips, and they're trying to make it seem powerful because it's bouncing these things off of it.
Okay, well,
And then the third one goes in and it starts bleeding and freaking out. This poor little shark, just doing shark things. I just imagine it in a pool, just being shot for this James Bond film. That being said, I do like eating shark. I don't have anything against it.
Anyway,
but-
this woman is molesting a sea turtle.
Yes.
So then Bond decides to molest her.
Ooh.
Turnabout is fair play, as they say. And this is another part. This is another one that just really hammers home the overt sexuality of this film. He just they surface and then he starts talking to her and is basically just sex me, and she's like, well, I'm not gonna say no. They don't sex themselves right away.
This is true. This is true. He then has to fake the boat breaking down because it was actually
Right, so then
broke
he
down.
swims back to his boat with the CIA agent chick who's in a bikini. And
The boat was legitimately broken.
it's 10 feet away.
This is true.
Right,
But the boat was legitimately broken.
right,
He then goes and breaks it more.
right.
Why?
Listen, man. You just gotta sell it.
Okay.
So then he shouts at Domino, "Can I ride with you?" or something, and tells the CIA agent lady to just take the service boat back.
Yeah.
Dives off his boat, swims back to Domino's boat. They go on the beach together.
They do. Then they end up at the pool having lunch.
Yeah,
And that's where he reveals that he knows she's Domino.
right.
He asks her a whole bunch of things. There's a whole bunch of catty play in that.
Right.
Is that when they go into the casino? wait.
It's later that day is when they go to the casino.
Is that when he orders the champagne?
Yes. No. He orders champagne at dinner.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think you see him order anything in that. But she does keep saying something like, "My guardian this, my guardian that, blah blah blah," and then you see a boat honking its horn out in the water. She turns around and says, "That's my guardian's yacht." And Bond is very interested in that, and then
It's like, can I meet
he
your
says,
guardian?
"Yeah," he says, "Can I meet your guardian, or can we dinner?" Or
Can we dinner?
I'm pretty sure he says something like that.
Yeah, he definitely asks her to dinner.
And then she leaves, and then you. Is there anything between that and the casino scene?
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
There might be a helicopter scene. Because there's quite a few helicopter scenes.
There's a lot of helicopter scenes that are pretty much all the same. It's just Bond and Felix Leiter, the return of everyone's favorite CIA agent,
Who looks completely different.
who looks completely different because it's our third different actor for 3 appearances for Felix Leiter.
Could I also make the comment at this point, basing that Felix Leiter is some sort of code name? We see the other double O's for the first time.
We sure do.
Yeah, earlier in the film.
Earlier in the film when they get the ransom message.
Yeah.
And Bond is there. You see apparently all the double O's. I mean, that is a line that's said in the film, that every double O in Europe
Yeah.
has been called in.
I think they even make a comment about 0010. I'm pretty certain they make a comment about 0010 because I noticed that and I'm like, oh, so they do go double digit, which I just thought was interesting.
Sure. But yeah, you do see other double O's for the first time.
You never see their faces, I don't
No, but they're in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different helicopter scenes of Bond and Felix just flying over the water, looking through binoculars and
Playing with the manta rays.
playing with manta ray. Yeah, so there's gratuitous scenes in this movie of just like wildlife that they had to have just seen while they were on location, right? And we're like, oh, that looks cool. Let's film that and put it in the movie.
And they did. And
they
it does.
did. Yeah, like a lot.
So then they end up at the casino?
They go in the casino playing what we assume is Baccarat, right? Is that what we determined it was in Dr. No the first movie?
I'm used to, we should have looked it up, but I'm used to in spy movies that are making fun of James Bond, they play Baccarat. That's like very clear that they're playing Baccarat. I also know Baccarat is played with cards, not chips. Like those, the big money cards.
Sure.
So like, maybe it's Baccarat.
You and I just aren't familiar enough with casino games to really know what it is on
This
site.
is true. And they mentioned something about passing the boot. Or the shoe?
It's the shoe.
The shoe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, Patrick's gonna look up exactly how to play it, and then we'll know whether or not that's the game we've been talking about for 2 movies. Yeah, Bond walks into this casino, sees Domino, with her handler, her guardian, who you now find out is Spectre number 2, Amelia Largo. Jamaican McThirdwheel, aka Eye Patch. And this is actually the point at which he becomes Jamaican McThirdwheel, because Domino makes some like pouty, whiny comment about after Bond wins like a couple hands, and Domino's like starting to get a little pissy. She says something about like, you said you were gonna buy me a drink, and Amelia Largo says, once I win my money back, and Bond says, oh, can I buy her a drink? And Largo says, be my guest or something, and then they stop playing. So how is Largo supposed to win his money back? I thought that was pretty silly. But anyway, so they go for Bond and Domino go for a stroll, and he keeps asking her about Largo, and then they just like wind up at dinner, and he's ordering Dom 55? Is that what he orders?
Yeah, Dom Perignon 1955, which at this point is his most ordered drink.
Well, Dom, not specifically the 55.
Well, he mentions 53 and I think a 54 at one point. And by the way, yes, it is Baccarat, and it's a type of Baccarat called Planco.
You got me, man.
Yeah.
I know. I can play blackjack.
It is Baccarat
and Pie Gal.
It's the same game they play in Dr. No. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Then they're just talking about Bond keeps asking her questions about Largo.
Yeah.
Like a lot. And then they go dancing.
They dance.
And then
she gets all romantic-y.
Sure. Because every woman who has intimate physical contact with James Bond falls deeply in love with James Bond. God, there's got to be a shorter name for that trope.
Bond syndrome.
Here. I'm gonna look at TV tropes and see if that's a thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll check in on it.
Okay.
But
anyway, Largo says we gotta go, and then Bond creepily asks where they're sleeping that night.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
He's like, are you sleeping on board or on the boat or something like that? And then Largo's like, it was, the reason I specifically remember that is because it's said twice in about the span of 4 or 5 lines where Bond says it, and then Largo says to Domino when they're walking away, like under his breath, like, what did he ask you about? What did he say? Blah, blah, blah. Because Largo knows who James Bond is, apparently. He knows he's 007, knows he's MI6.
Well, he calls himself James Bond earlier, and they're like, "Oh, one of my associates had a run-in with you."
Sure.
By the way, yes, it is a TV trope. It's just called a Bond girl trope, and yeah.
Okay. The Bond girl trope.
They apparently officially want to call it the temporary love interest,
I mean,
but
yeah, that also makes sense. But this is like specifically a Bond thing.
yeah. And apparently Captain Kirk.
Oh yeah, I'm giving that. Shatner and Connery, hell of a duo.
Ugh. I just imagine them now.
I know, right? Yeah, so oh, and what I was saying is, so Largo is asking Domino what Bond asked her, and she says the line again, he asked us if we were sleeping on board, or something like that. And I was just like, why? That's so weird. Why would you ask that?
I don't know. Bond is a weird fella.
Yeah, he's... Ugh.
He then goes diving, right?
He sure does go diving.
Yes. And this is where
At
Bond's
night.
luck.
Yeah.
Bond's luck. Oh, by the way, Q shows up.
Yeah, we didn't mention Q.
Yeah, he just shows up.
Yeah, he's
They're
on
like
location.
underground base.
And he complains about having to give Bond his gear in the field.
Yeah. And he complains about the way he says, Bond, I expect you to treat this gear with the usual contempt.
Yeah, which is a great line.
And Bond's now just starting to act like a child. Seriously, when he's around Q, he just becomes a child, where he's like playing with things, flipping switches,
Right.
just doing anything. Almost shoots himself in the head with a flare.
Right.
Complains about his safely radioactive tablet he has to consume. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Q is my favorite part of these movies, because he's just so sarcastic the whole time.
Indeed he is. I can't wait for a particular Q scene that we'll get to later.
Alright.
Wait, query. Query. Is Q named after Q?
What? Oh, is Q in Star Trek named after Q
Yeah.
in Bond?
Maybe?
You're the Star Trek nerd?
You're a bit of a Trekkie trekker too.
Way less than you are.
This is true. The other day, Daryl showed me a 2-second clip. Like, literally just, it was random background chatter from a Star Trek episode. And I'm like, oh yeah, that episode went and he said, really? Really?
Yeah.
Because he asked me who my favorite captain was.
Did you say the only way is Janeway?
Ooh. Actually, I have to say, I'm like, I want to be a hipster right now. I don't want to say Jean-Luc Picard, but yeah, Jean-Luc Picard. And then he said, no, it needs to be this guy. And he starts playing the clip, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, when Kelsey Grammer played a Star Trek captain. And no, we're not ripping off of Red Letter Media. I do indeed like Star Trek just fine on my own.
God.
That's a stereotype of Red Letter Media's videos, that whatever they're talking about will get sidetracked into Star Trek.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's where James Bond's luck really comes in handy.
Yeah, when he
he's
goes
underwater.
diving. So
Yeah.
he's taking pictures of the underside of the boat.
Yes.
And
Takes 8 pictures in quick succession.
right, and they figure out he's there somehow. I didn't really. Maybe I just didn't see that. I was looking at my phone or something. Somehow there is a diver in the water who's like a guard.
Yeah, it was just
or
a patrol
something.
diver. A patrol diver notices.
Okay, but then somehow the people on the boat notice that there's this underwater fight happening.
I think somehow the patrol diver gave them notice.
Okay, and then so they turn on the underwater lights and the underwater cameras,
Well, first off,
which just happen to be pointing directly at where the people are fighting.
and just happened to be the same camera angle we get in the film. But I wanted to point out Bond's luck here. The guy has the drop on Bond. Bond thinks he's alone. The guy shoots at Bond and misses.
Yeah, shoots at him with a harpoon and misses.
Yeah.
And misses a stationary target in the water.
By a far cry, too.
Yeah, by a mile. So Bond gets the guy's dive knife and cuts his air hose on his scuba equipment.
And it's not implied that he killed the guy, as far as I know.
No, you never see the guy again.
Yeah.
Like, he may have just swum to the surface. They weren't that far underwater. Like,
Yeah.
he easily could have held his breath that whole way.
Can we mention Sean Connery's legs?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sean Connery likes wearing short shorts in this film.
Sure does.
So if that's something you want to see,
You know why? Because Sean Connery doesn't skip leg day.
snap, crackle, and or pop.
Yeah. So then they start dropping grenades in the water.
Which is when I started having flashbacks to Shark Attack 3 Megalodon, Terror Has Surfaced.
Of course, that's what it's called.
Yes. And many years before the Meg. Yeah. So in Shark Attack 3, they have grenades. And yes, it's another Italian man in the Bahamas. Well, actually, this time it's Mexico. And they're throwing grenades overboard. And I was just having flashback to this. There's the sharks, and we just need
They're
him.
just throwing grenades at Bond,
Yeah.
but he swims away.
They annoy him.
Right. He ditches his... Oh, wait, so they set off their, like, they have this little, like, powerboat dinghy type thing attached to this yacht that Bond was taking pictures of. So they take that out and try to chase him around, and he goes underneath this catamaran, and they see him because he's surfaced.
Yep.
So he dives back under when they take their boat underneath the catamaran, and Bond takes off his scuba gear and uses this little, like, 4-minute rebreather thing that Q has given him.
He doesn't, actually. This is just him doing his thing. The rebreather comes into play later.
No, he puts the rebreather in his mouth.
He does?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He puts the rebreather in his mouth.
See, that would make sense where he would use the rebreather.
Right.
Rather than later when he also uses the rebreather.
Well, yeah, it's probably reusable. Anyway,
I'm having flashbacks to episode 1.
point is, he throws his mask and his air tank float to the surface, and they pick them up. The bad guys pick him up out of the water, and they assume that they ran him over with the propeller.
Yep.
Even though there's no evidence of that whatsoever.
Yeah, they don't even make it clear if, like, James Bond, like, put it up so it would get run over. They don't like,
Right.
make a, oh, what was that, what we hit?
Right.
No.
There's no bump or anything like that. So he just swims to shore
Yeah.
because they think he's dead.
And is picked up by a redheaded woman,
Right.
The
The
same
same redheaded woman.
which I needed to have explained to me.
It was implied, yeah, Patrick didn't know it was the same woman, who it was implied had sex with the Italian man
Yes.
before the Italian man was killed.
Yes.
Okay,
She was the Italian man's, like, lady love.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't, though. She was his fake lady love.
Yes. But he
Because
didn't know
she's
that.
a Spectre agent. So she picks him up in a blue Mustang.
A rather beat up Blue Mustang for being new.
Right.
For being a new car.
And he just says, like, can you drive me this direction or whatever? And she goes, like, we'll see, or something. Like, she didn't actually say yes, and he's just like, whatever.
Now, at this point, it's made very clear that she is driving very fast, and Bond is uncomfortable by this.
Copious camera shots of the speedometer.
But I think this film would be made infinitely better if they
Oh,
don't show you that.
She says, you better put on your safety belt, and he clearly doesn't.
Yes, he doesn't.
Because there's no way in hell James Bond is taking orders from a woman who's driving.
And that's my headcanon, is that he wasn't uncomfortable with the speed. He was being uncomfortable by
with the fact of being driven by a woman.
Yeah.
And they actually do say something when, okay, so they get to the hotel, and she goes like, this is my stop, and he says, what a coincidence, this is my hotel, and she says, yes, what a coincidence, because she knows it's his hotel.
Yeah.
Because she's a Spectre agent, she knows who he is.
And I think at this point he knows she's a Spectre agent too.
Yeah, he sees her ring, which has got, the Hail Hydra symbol on it.
Is that the first time we see that?
No, because it's on,
Something with Dr. No?
no, it's earlier in this film. I think it's,
It was on one of the other guys' rings.
one of the other Spectre guys that he's had a previous encounter with. She has the same ring. So she actually says something like, I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable, or did I make you uncomfortable? And he she says like some men just don't like being driven.
Yeah.
And he says some men don't like being taken for a ride, which James Bond loves being taken for a ride. Let's get that out in the open right now. Taken for a ride in the sexual sense. Gotta explain that joke to certain members of the audience. Patrick included.
Oh, man. By the way, there were a bunch of, just so you know, and I don't know why I need to say this, but there were a bunch of sexual jokes between the redhead and the Italian woman before the redhead and the Italian man, before he
Right.
gets gassed.
Yeah.
But there's interplay between the CIA agent and the redhead. Like, they know each other. The CIA woman.
Is there?
Yes, there is. There's interplay between the two of them where she goes, oh, because she has Bond's key. Because James Bond gives her his key.
Oh, this is like way later in the movie.
Oh, I thought this was around this point.
No,
Sorry.
this is like an hour later. This is an hour and 30 or 130 minute runtime, by the way, in this movie.
Seriously.
It's super long.
We'll be up there.
All right.
So,
We have gone quite a lot of tangents. So Bond goes into his room.
yeah.
And
Is this where he finds the guy with the recording tape in his room?
yeah.
And he finds the guy in the shower
Yeah.
and turns it on.
Turns it on and it's instantly scalding hot. And because every shower you've ever gotten in is instantly scalding hot when you turn it on.
Oh, man. And the CIA agent is in there, and the CIA agent refers to him as 007. Is that still supposed to be Felix Leiter?
Yeah, it's Felix Leiter.
Yeah.
It is Felix Leiter. It's just the third different actor we've had for Felix Leiter.
Yeah, that confuses
in
me.
3 appearances in 4 films.
And so he calls James Bond by 007, and that disturbs 007.
No. Okay, this is what happened. Because there's a throwaway line that explains that. Okay, so Bond knows that there's someone in the room. So he's like trying to sneak up on him, and then there's a knock on the door. Bond opens it, and it's Felix Leiter, and Leiter starts to say, like, hey there, 007, and Bond punches him in the diaphragm to prevent him from saying 007, so that the other person can't hear, the guy who's in the room can't hear who is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Bond goes in the bathroom and turns on the scalding hot water and karate chops the guy's wrists so that the gun falls out.
Yes.
And then hits the guy or whatever and throws him out of the room and says, go tell your boss 007 says, or James Bond says whatever. And then there's a throwaway line to Felix where he says, like, I didn't want you to say 007 or something like that.
Yeah, and they also give the guy back his gun. And I also love that this guy...
Felix keeps the magazine, though. They do show that pretty...
But I love that this guy pleads for his life. He says, please don't send me back there. They'll shoot me in the back.
Yeah.
And they go, no, we don't care.
Bond says, give him his gun back.
Yeah.
Give him his gun back with no ammo.
Yeah.
So that guy goes back to Largo's compound.
Yes.
And,
we get pool of sharks.
yeah, there's a pool of sharks that are clearly shown being fed.
Yep.
Immediately before this person shows up.
Yep.
And then the way they dispose of him for failing, like he knew they would,
Yep.
is they throw him in the pool of sharks
Yep.
who have just fed.
Yep.
Can we clear up some misconceptions about sharks?
Well, I do want to clear up one thing about this scene before we get too deep into this. Did they make him bleed? You know, Batman style, before they put him in the pool.
They don't show it.
Yeah, they show him getting hit by a towel, as you...
Yeah, Largo slaps him in the face with a towel. Not like you snap somebody with a towel where it's like twisted up and then you like whip it at somebody.
Yeah.
No, it's just like sort of an open towel and he just sort of flops it at the guy and he staggers back like 5 feet and needs to be held up. That's how hard he just got hit.
Well, I mean, maybe he has bionic hands from Dr. No.
Maybe Spectre salvaged Dr. No's bionic hands and implanted them onto number 2.
Yeah, number 2, sorry, we can keep your eye, but hands.
Yeah, you hear these super strong hands. So they don't actually show the guy being made to bleed.
Yeah.
They just toss him in this water with sharks, and you don't see him getting eaten either. I feel like that's beyond the capabilities of this movie.
I think they show a little bit of blood in the water, though.
Yeah, well, they show a camera angle from the water looking out, and it like turns red, like they filtered it red. But okay, misconceptions about sharks.
Ampullae of Lorenzini. Sharks have them.
Okay. The sharks don't just eat anything that's in front of them.
This is very true.
They eat when they're hungry.
This is very true.
Every other animal on Earth. They were just fed.
Yep.
They therefore cannot be hungry.
Well, in the defense of the movie, we only see a couple sharks being fed.
Doesn't matter.
There were like 5.
It's implied that the sharks were being fed.
Yes.
And then they throw this man in this pool.
Yes.
Which, by the way, is shown to be like maybe 5 feet deep.
Yep.
But this guy is like drowning in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The scene does indeed make no sense. It would have made a hell of a lot more sense if they're like, oh, like they tied him up hands and feet and then like cut his back or something like that. And then
Right, and then threw him in the water.
That would kind of make
like
sense.
Attracting the sharks, but
Yeah.
like they never show him bleeding, so there would be nothing to attract them. They've just fed, so they're not hungry. The only notice they're going to take of this guy is he's in the water, so they don't run into him.
And the funny thing is they actually set this up twice in the movie that sharks don't just randomly attack. They have to be either curious and wondering what you're doing, or provoked, or hungry. And they make a point of it twice. Once there's, spoiler alert for future in the movie, but we're talking sharks now. They're diving on a wreck, and they're like, oh, there's a bunch of killer sharks. Shoot one of them so that the others are not, so the others are distracted. See, that makes sense. The shark's wounded. They're going to go after it. Okay. And then also there's a point where Bond is in the water with a guy who's bleeding, and the sharks leave him alone and go after the guy who's bleeding. Also makes sense. So, like, they clearly kind of get it. Why couldn't they get it with this guy?
Right. We
just needed a scene of him getting cut before he's thrown in.
Right. The whole point of the medium. Show, don't tell.
I thought it was all about tell, don't show.
Yeah, correct.
So anyway, yes, sharks. Now, I did like this, that they did use tiger sharks, which is kind of cool. You don't often see them in film. They did get abused later in the film, as you well know, dear audience. But, hey, they're sharks.
Patrick's gonna whine about for the rest of the podcast.
I will whinge about this. And, hey, by the way, recurring character, 1964, Lincoln Continental.
Yeah, sure, they did bring back the Lincoln Continental.
I had to bring that up again today. When I was talking with my dad, I had to bring up how awful that was.
That they destroyed the Continental
Yeah.
in Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. What happens after that scene?
So the guy gets eaten by the sharks. I think then we have another helicopter scene.
Of course we do. They're just all over the place in this movie.
And I actually think that's the helicopter scene with the manta ray. And it's the same helicopter scene with when they actually go and they find Thunderball. Yes? Bond dives down. They shoot the shark to keep the others occupied. Bond goes through the camouflage.
No, not yet.
Oh, I thought that was...
There's a whole scene with like the Bahamas version of Mardi Gras.
I thought that was after this.
No, there's 2 of those. There's a scene where Bond is with Domino.
Yeah.
At the Mardi Gras thing, and then Felix like takes him away.
Yeah. By the way, that Mardi Gras thing was apparently an Easter celebration. There's all these signs that say Happy Easter.
Right, and clearly was
Shooting
not,
the rodeo.
Yeah, exactly. It was shooting the rodeo. It was not a scene that was organized by the filmmakers. it was just a thing that was happening that they decided to film. And there was one particularly great scene or great shot at the beginning where they're showing all these. So it's like it's Mardi Gras. There's like it's like a parade and all these costumes and stuff. And there's people on the side of the street standing there watching, spectating, right? So there's like just B-roll of these people standing on the side of the road, and they're all watching the parade, but there's one guy just glaring at the camera.
Oh man, why? He's just giving the stink eye at the camera, and I don't get it. Now, my personal headcanon is that they did not inform any of these people that this was going to take place, and that the locals just believed it was a drunk British man interfering with their parade.
Which is funny later in the movie when Bond is like trying to escape the Spectre agents, and he's hiding, running through the parade and hiding in the parade, and all these people in costumes and stuff.
We also didn't mention the jump cut in the punch in the very first scene.
Oh, yeah.
There's a jump cut in a punch to make it seem faster.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's a lot of sped up film.
Yeah, which is really weird.
Movie.
It works in Mad Max and the car chase scenes. It doesn't work in this.
Yeah, a lot of the fight scenes.
Anything to do with the
Pretty
boats.
much all the fight scenes. Almost anything to do with the boats to make them appear like they're going faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They held back with the car, though.
They did.
Which was nice. But anyway.
No
car chase. Well, yes, there was a car chase.
There was a car chase, yeah.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the movie.
With a motorcycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's at this point that we noticed that, and by noticed I mean I was reading the Wikipedia article about the cast of the movie because I was trying to figure out actors' names and stuff. That the character Domino predominantly wears black and white colors because dominoes, which I thought was really clever. But then literally the next scene when you're shown her, so I mentioned this to Patrick. I said, oh, hey, Domino always wears black and white because her name is Domino. And up until I said that, you had only seen her in black and white. Black and white bikinis, different colors, black and white dress, all this stuff. And then, literally the moment I said that, you're shown a scene of her with Bond at the Mardi Gras thing, and she's wearing, like, scarlet red, like, bright scarlet red, and I went, oh, it does say usually black and white. Made me feel like a real idiot. I was like, oh, she always wears black and white. That's a neat trick.
We also, by this point, we had gone to, Bond had gone to the main villain's house. Shot some skeet.
Oh, yeah, they did do that, yeah. Because he invites him. Yeah.
To lunch.
Largo invites Bond to lunch, so Bond goes after one of the helicopter scenes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Domino's attire?
Oh, yeah, okay, so Bond shows up at the house, and she's swimming laps in the pool wearing a one-piece bathing suit. And then she gets out, and she's, like, toweling herself off or whatever, and Bond...
They're talking about pleasures.
Largo are talking about pleasures, and Bond stares very obviously at Domino. And then she says something like, I better go get dressed.
I think she says, she awkwardly says, I better go change.
Yeah.
That was the way she phrased it.
Presumably into something more modest because Bond is staring at her in this bathing suit, except then the next scene you see her, she's wearing a two-piece bikini that is even more revealing than the thing she was just wearing, and I thought that was hilarious.
It was. And both of those, the one piece was black. And then the
two-piece was black and white.
Yeah. So, like, it was really feeding into your thing about her only wearing black and white.
Right.
It was making sense.
Right. And then she wears all red at the Mardi Gras thing. Yeah, they, like, shoot some skeet a little bit.
Yeah. Again, Browning humpback shotgun, kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much that scene.
Well, you missed out the part where the guy hands Bond a shotgun, and Bond goes, a lady's shotgun, or a lady's gun. And he goes, Know much about guns, Mr. Bond.
And he says, no, but I know a lot about ladies. Which, I mean, he's not wrong. Like, clearly he does. Anyway, so they go to the Mardi Gras thing, and then he goes away with Felix because they're doing something.
Well, I think they go to talk about the fact that the CIA woman has gone missing.
Right.
So she
was supposed to meet them at the CIA thing, or at the Mardi Gras thing, or something. She's all dressed up when you see her get abducted. Because the redheaded Spectre woman agent has the key to Bond's room, and they go in and kidnap her with, like, two of the other brute people who were introduced at Largo's
estate,
yeah.
Now, let's talk about this scene here, because I am mildly perplexed, bumfuzzled, as you would say, about this scene. Redhead walks in. She has a key. She's very clear about the key. Bond never gave her the key, right? At least not that I noticed. And then she plays it off with the woman by saying, oh, Bond's interested in you too, you know? And the CIA woman is, like, totally going along with it, like this is just one of Bond's flings.
Because I don't think she knew who the redhead chick was. I think only Bond knew who the redhead chick was.
I completely agree.
Right. But then the two henchmen come in.
Yeah. Did Bond ever give her a key?
I don't remember seeing that, but again, I was looking at my phone trying to figure out
questions about the movie.
Things about the movie, so I didn't actually see it. We should do research before the film.
This is true, but that's part of the joy of After Action. It is raw, uncut, much like an onion.
I cut up a lot of onion this weekend.
Ooh, snap.
I was using it as aromatic for my turkey.
Ooh, yeah, pretty decent.
Yeah, it's good. And I didn't cry because I'm not a wuss. I've never understood why people say that you cry when you're cutting onions. I've never done that.
Very specific onions.
It's never affected me.
Really, really low-grade bad onions are very sulfurous, and they do hurt.
Okay.
I've only ever experienced them when I've gone shopping at, like, grocery discount. Or, get this is literally a grocery store where I've been. The Big Gib.
Sounds gross.
It was.
So, I don't remember a whole lot after that, except Bond has sex with the redheaded woman.
Well, I'm trying to remember.
Like, more than once.
Yes, that's implied multiple times. And we'll talk about those sex scenes because I have things to say about them. But when does the nuke transfer happen? Does that happen before redhead sex or after?
You mean the part where they're taking the nukes out of the underwater thing?
Yeah.
That's after.
Okay, that's after?
Yeah, that's well after.
Okay, then let's talk about redhead sex.
Okay.
Things to notice. There is so much going on there. With, like, catty play with this.
Yeah, okay, because, so... This is the order of the scenes, because they kidnap CIA agent, and then the redhead woman just stays in the room, and she's in the bath when Bond walks in.
Yes, she is. And then she says, "Well, could you at least hand me something to put on?"
Hand me something to put on, and Bond hands her shoes.
Oh man! And she takes them.
And then he sits down in this like plush leather armchair that's in a bathtub or bathroom for some reason, and just sort of stares expectantly at her, like that was gonna work.
Well, it did. The thing I want to point out too is she has a towel around her hair, and she takes that off to cover her breasts. And she's just totally showing off her crotch to our young hero here.
If we're being honest, it was the 60s. Probably a lot covering up down there.
Oh, snap.
Just saying. That was a thing.
That was indeed a thing. Snap.
You don't need to cover up below the waist when the camera cuts off below the waist.
This is true, but I personally just, again, headcanon here. There's a lot of headcanon in this film. That she was more concerned about her chest than her lower bits.
Right. So then there's, like, some more particularly rapey behavior from Bond, culminating in them having sex. Then,
She makes comments about how this bed is like a cage. Am I safe?
she does. That's when they start having sex for the second time.
Yes.
Because you should always have sex with men you know are working against your evil plan who you do not feel safe with.
Yes. And he knows that she is working
Right.
against his plan.
Right. Yes.
And so
All of those things.
the sex ends. She becomes dressed. He becomes dressed. He's leaving.
Oh, yeah, so
there's a
then-
knock at the door.
Yeah. And it's the henchmen.
And he recognizes him. And he locks them out. And then she has a gun pointed on him.
Right.
At which point he goes, friends of yours. And he lets them in. And somehow gives her his gun.
The henchmen take it from him.
Yeah. And she says, oh, why did you have this? And he goes, it was under the pillow the whole time. And then says some great things. He says to her, what I did was for queen and country.
Yeah.
And I received no pleasure from it.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Something to that effect.
Which was hilarious.
And then she says, oh, the great James Bond, every woman falls madly in love with him except me, except clearly she did because
Not really.
Bond girl trope.
Bond girl trope, yes. And I do actually have to say, I think she's my favorite Bond girl so far. I don't know why. But I will mention two things. She called him a brute for messing up her hair.
Okay.
And I don't think his animal magnetism worked on her.
I do.
She was above it.
She wasn't.
She tracks him down.
They had sex twice.
Yes, and it didn't work.
It clearly did. They wouldn't have done it the second time if it hadn't worked the first time.
Anyway, so
they're escorting him to somewhere.
they're taking him back to the boat.
Yeah.
Like that.
And he breaks away and
Joins the Easter parade.
joins the Easter parade after being shot in the ankle foot region.
Yes. And then drives the best Bond car of all time.
So they start chasing him through this thing, and the way they're following him is these neon glowing red splotches of quote-unquote blood.
I think that has something to do with regulation, but it's definitely so you can see what's going on.
Just so campy. And he's ducking and weaving through the parade and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets in. He hides in a float that has all these, like, bikini models on it. And what's funny is, earlier in the movie, when you're shown this Mardi Gras parade thing for the first time, this float clearly has real live women on it.
I wanted to talk with you about that.
Yeah. So when Bond gets on it and hides underneath it, and it's like they're showing scenes of him peeking out the side or whatever, they are very clearly mannequins.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask you, are those women really that good at standing still?
No, those are mannequins.
There were some real women, but the rest of them were mannequins?
Yeah.
Anyone that looks like a mannequin is a mannequin? Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Best
Best Bond car ever, just a car made of women.
Right. That is true. It's the best Bond car ever. And he's being taken for a ride, which he professes he doesn't like. But
No, he's very clearly taking them for a ride. Again, headcanon here, he's driving.
Yeah, he's not. Because they figure out that he's on that because of the glowing neon Welcome to Las Vegas sign of blood on the side of the thing, of the float.
Yes.
And they're like trying to figure out how to get in it, on it, something. And he sneaks out the back and crawls through the spectators at the side.
Yep.
And then just jogs away like he hasn't been shot in the foot. Slight limp. He does affect a slight limp. I'll give Connery that for having the presence of mind to remember to do that.
Now, what bar did he go into? What was the name of that bar?
What's it? The Kiss
It was Kiss Kiss something.
something bar, yeah.
The Kiss Kiss room. Let's just call it that.
Sure. That's what it was called.
And he instantly picks up a woman.
Right, he goes to a woman there's a woman at a bar drinking a tropical drink. He takes it out of her hand and loudly proclaims, "Don't mind if I do," and swings her on the dance floor. And she's totally into it because Bond girl trope.
That was actually pretty great. I want to almost say that what he said to her was even worse than that, or weirder than that. I think he said, "Absolutely, I would love this dance," or something to that effect, where he was answering a question that wasn't asked.
Right, yeah, that's definitely what it was.
And she responds befuddledly.
But then they start dancing, and she's super into it.
Yeah.
And by the way, Bond still shot in the foot or ankle. He's just dancing on the dance floor and sees all this Spectre agent
stuff going on.
Thug guys coming into the place and surrounding the place. Then Redhead shows up 10 seconds into Bond dancing with this random girl, and she goes, "May
I cut in?
May I cut in?" And the chick says, "You didn't tell me your wife was here," in this really whiny accent.
Yeah, and she wasn't even really particularly annoyed.
Right.
She was just like,
She was just again.
Yeah.
We need a backstory on this woman. How many times that men have tried to cheat on their wives with her only to be caught on the dance floor of this particular bar in the Bahamas.
Well, it's happened more than once.
Apparently. She's unfazed by this occurrence.
At which point we see a man sneak his hand from behind some velvet curtains behind the band and start to take aim at our hero.
At which point Patrick goes, "He's gonna spin her and use her as a meat shield, isn't he?" And about 15 seconds later, because that's how long they build up the tension in this scene, the bongo is just going faster, and closer and closer camera shots on just the guy playing bongos with his hands and the gun right next to it coming out of the thing. And then the gun finally goes off. Sure enough, Bond spins her at the last minute, and then some really terrible practical effects of fake blood that Connery was clearly supposed to be holding.
Yeah.
But was trying to spread his fingers but couldn't do it. And there just wasn't enough blood. It was funny.
And thus dies the best Bond girl. Next to Dr. No.
So the redhead dies.
And what does he say to the people he sets her down with?
So he Weekend at Bernie's her across the dance floor to this other table, and then there's these two people sitting at a table, and there's an empty chair, and he sets the dead woman down in it and goes, "Do you mind if my friend sits this one out? She's dead, or she's just dead."
Yeah.
Which is not even a pun. At least say she's dead tired or something like that. He just says she's literally dead. Here, have this dead
corpse.
body.
Yeah, that really blew my mind because most of the puns that they do or jokes like that are actually mildly decently set up, or they actually, believe it or not, have restraint.
Right. This one doesn't at all.
No, this
he
wasn't
just
even
says,
a joke.
"She's dead. I'm putting her in this chair. Deal with it."
Deal with the aftermath of murder.
And then he just runs away.
Yes. With his limp.
With his limp.
That he doesn't have anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
Does he ever get treatment for that?
Not that I saw.
Yeah. And so you're telling me he went back into the shark-infested waters with a bullet in his ankle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Does the rest of the movie with a bullet in his ankle.
Wow.
Bleeding out all the while.
Well, he is Bond. James Bond.
And he's very lucky. So he,
Isn't there another interaction with Domino? Because there's this whole plot about they're going to cut the power out to their entire island. Because Bond wants the power out at this one place.
Right, yeah.
And the whole while, this is when Chris and I were having our conversation about why, the Bahamas aren't in Jamaica. And I say to him, wait. This place isn't, and the whole point I was trying to get across is places in tropical storm regions, particularly rich places in tropical storm regions, often have backup generators.
And then literally as you said that line, the character in the movie goes, "Turn on the backup generator."
And I'm like, yeah, so you just, killed all sorts of people's pet fish. You know, there's so many hospitals that had to turn on their backup powers. Also, you could have like 10 seconds of power outage.
Right.
Now, talk about how James Bond hides.
Wait, is this before or after he and Domino have scuba sex?
I don't know. There is scuba sex, and there's a pun afterwards.
I think the scuba sex happens first because he has to tell Domino, hey, turn off the power, right?
No, he doesn't tell Domino to turn off the power. What he's telling... No, the scuba sex is definitely later. Because the scuba sex is when she gets the camera, which is right before she gets on the boat.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So, he breaks into this facility to save the CIA woman.
Yes.
Because remember, he now knows she's been taken.
Right.
By whom?
So yeah, they turn off the power to the thing so he could sneak in and save her. Turns out she's dead.
Yes, she killed herself.
She killed herself, took her cyanide capsule.
But, how does James Bond hide from the security guards?
He lays down flat on the floor.
Yep. It works.
And it works. They do not see him.
I mean, fair enough. I would never expect to see James Bond laying on my floor.
So there's a door. There's an open doorway. It doesn't have a door to it. It's just an arch.
Yep.
And there's light spilling out of the arch, and it's dark in the room that James Bond is in. And he hears them coming out of the room, and he lays down flat on the floor. Now, he doesn't lay flat on the floor parallel to the wall, so that conceivably, you take like one step through the door, he's not in your peripheral vision.
No.
He lays down perpendicular to the wall, so that all 6 feet of him are standing away from the wall. Should be pretty easy to see. They don't see him.
Bond's lucky.
Bond's lucky.
He gets out of there.
He gets out of there. Then he goes and
Reports back.
yeah. Then is it scuba sex?
Then it's finally time for scuba.
Finally time for scuba sex. And so I'm sitting there watching this scene. It's clearly Domino because she's wearing a black and white bikini. And as we know, if someone's wearing black and white, it's Domino in this movie. And Bond. And then they're like scuba diving together or rendezvous under the water or something. And you just see them sink down behind this rock outcropping, and then a bunch of bubbles get released. And I just went, they just had scuba sex, didn't they?
And indeed they do. They get back on shore, and Bond says, "Hope we didn't scare the fish." I do want to point out that there is actually...
so bad.
There is actually indeed a Jamaican McThird wheel in this film that is not number 2. And I will mention him later, but that's what the epiphany look on my face was. That there was a Jamaican McThird wheel for the first time that was like a legitimate, like, romantic rival to Bond. In a way. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But this is when James Bond gives her a Geiger counter camera for some unknown reason. He says to know that the bombs are on board. And when they're on board, go up on dock and we'll know you're there.
Right.
And she says... There's this pathway to the water with stairs and yada yada.
It's probably not important. And then if the scene fades out and you just hear her voiceover going, oh, maybe it is important. No kidding.
And Bond waits there, again, for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And is able to sneak down, karate chop one of the scuba divers.
So number 2 is getting ready to go transfer the atomic bombs from where they were hidden underwater to their underwater submarine type thing.
Mind you, he's going there himself.
Right, which is a thing we've established in Bond movies that happens, that Bond villains are unnecessarily physically involved in the plans that they're carrying out.
Yes.
Except when Dr. No was trying to fight Bond hand-to-hand to prevent the nuclear meltdown from happening, went with number 3 in From Russia with Love, although there is a caveat to that. It sort of made sense because it's, she's desperate. Either Spectre's going to kill her or Bond's going to kill her. So she puts herself in the field. That one kind of makes sense.
This one doesn't.
This one just doesn't at all. There's this whole team of like 15 people that number 2 has working for him that are capable of performing this operation. There's no reason he has to be there. But so he tells everybody to suit up. Bond sneaks up and karate chops the guy on the end of the line and then starts putting all this stuff on. Nobody notices.
No, why would they?
Dead silent. This guy falling off a wall.
Splash.
Yeah, and Bond dragging him away and then putting his stuff on.
Why would you notice?
So Bond, I don't know. So Bond goes with them to this underwater cave thing where they've
Stored the nukes.
stored the nukes.
And at which point one of the divers goes, "Hey, that's not my friend. That's Bond."
I think that's number 2.
Oh, is that number 2?
Yeah, I think that's number 2. He's holding a
Okay.
flare.
Yeah,
he's like trying
yeah.
to direct things, and then Bond is like directly across from him. He goes, "That's Bond," and starts pointing at him like, "Get him."
I hate to say it, that might explain why number 2 was there. So he could recognize Bond.
No. I refuse to believe that.
It makes sense.
Bond villains are just unnecessarily involved in their operations.
And then they lock Bond and one of the henchmen in. They're just going to let that henchman die.
Right.
Why?
Yeah, so they...
Henchmen are not disposable. Henchmen
Bond
matter.
starts fighting people, and then they take the bomb. They load the bombs onto their submarine thing and leave this cave and close the thing and close Bond in.
Yep. With a henchman.
With a henchman that Bond
Kills.
kills. Obviously.
Feelings for the henchman.
Yeah. Then
He waits in the cave.
Bond, finds a way to a cave
Yeah.
that's open to the sky and shoots his flare because Felix is looking for him because Bond swallowed his
Radiation pill.
radiation pill that's a tracker.
Remember, kids, take your radiation every day.
Yeah. And they pick him up.
Yep. He goes, the bombs are on the boat.
Yep.
At which point, Domino starts trying to Geiger counter her way around the boat.
Right.
Which I was like, the hell? Oh, wait. He says something about the target is Miami.
Oh, yeah, he does say that.
Yeah. And so, Domino is now walking around the boat with this camera going, tick, 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 tick. You know, like,
Right.
really,
like
guys?
A Geiger counter.
Yeah, like, really? And she kind of even freaks out about it. Like, why is this thing making a noise?
Right.
You know?
And then number 2 finds her doing it,
Yeah.
figures out that it's a Geiger counter.
And then presumably rapes her and ties her up?
Well, we don't know about the rape thing, but definitely locks her in a room and ties her up.
Well, he
And-
makes creepy comments about, "You've given me so much pleasure."
Right, now I'm like, I don't want to give you pain or something, or now I might have to give you pain or something.
No,
but,
now I will give you pain.
But then he clearly talks about like burning her with the cigar that he's just lit, or like freezing her with the ice in scientific places or something like that. I
He
think is
phrased
the
it
line
that
he
way,
does.
yeah.
And I was just like, what are you even talking about? Like, it's not like it's dry ice, something that would hurt. It's literally just like ice cubes in his hand, which like uncomfortable, sure. Painful, not so much.
I mean, the cigar is a real threat, but yeah, the ice cubes. Come on, guy.
Right.
Come on. Guy. Get on that next level of torture.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, weird.
And then we do get the possible love interest. Love
Yeah.
competition.
Yeah.
The little geeky guy.
The little geeky guy who I wasn't even paying attention to just because, maybe I just missed the introduction
I don't think there
or
was one.
something. But
He's the nuclear scientist.
right. He's just there, but he saves the girl. He busts in right when number 2 is about to torture Domino.
Yeah.
He busts in and says
Now, can we? You
he
wanted to be
says something
warned.
you wanted to be warned when this thing was happening.
Can we assume that the guy was actually trying to save Domino, or was he just hoping to walk in on a sex scene?
I'd like to think the latter because that's funnier to me.
Yeah, I will admit that's funnier, and it makes a lot of sense the way they're setting it up. Like you see number 2 walk into the room, and then this woman starts moaning. From his perspective, it's him walking in on a sex scene, and he even hesitates a moment.
Right.
So
I'd like to think the latter.
Yeah.
But that makes less sense as far as the love triangle theory is concerned, because you would think he would want to stop that as quickly as possible if he were in love with her.
That's true, and he was.
But he wouldn't hesitate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to catch them having sex, you would hesitate. If you didn't want them to have sex, you wouldn't hesitate.
You know, this is fair. This is fair. So, anyway.
Either way, it's not important because he's, like, not...
I think he has, like, 3 lines
not
in the
that
movie.
important in the film. But you do see him untying her and saying something like, He did something. What did he do? Like,
he disarmed the bomb.
Oh, he disarmed the bomb. That's what he
Yeah,
did.
he's like, the bomb can't go off anymore. I threw the whatever
The
into the
detonator
ocean.
in the ocean. Yeah, he does say that. Yeah, you're right.
And like kind of makes a pass at her, kind of almost sort of, and like also like says like let's get out of here and saves her.
Right.
And I think he lives to the end. Like he jumps overboard.
Yeah, he does. So then there's like a couple things happening.
Wait, they don't save him.
Yeah, they never pick him. You never see him after he jumps overboard. There's a couple things. There's 2 scenes happening simultaneously. So there's one bomb on board the boat. There's another bomb in their little submarine thing, and there's just like armed flotilla of people with harpoon guns, and then you see
Orange Navy SEALs.
orange Navy SEAls, I guess.
Coast Guard Navy SEAls.
Or, yeah, I guess. Being
That would actually be a good
airdropped.
use for the Coast Guard.
Yeah, being airdropped from this plane. They're wearing orange wetsuits, so you can tell good guy from bad guy, because the bad guys are all wearing black, obviously, because bad guys wear black.
Then we get a reenactment of a Napoleonic era battle.
Right, where they just swim head onto each other and just start shooting each other with harpoons, and then they all run out of harpoons and they start trying to stab each other with knives, and it's just a cluster.
It's just like volley fire with like, you know, the first volley of harpoons goes off and like some men die. It was
Right.
Like, it was hilarious.
So, then you see Bond getting dropped off by Felix again, having been picked up in their helicopter previously after shooting the flare, with this giant thing on his back, and he jumps, you think is an air tank for scuba diving, to come join the fight. Bond is he's the charge of the light brigade, I guess. He's the cavalry.
He's the orange one in short shorts.
The ride of the Rohirrim. Yeah, and he's not wearing a full body wetsuit. He's wearing a spring suit, so he can have his short shorts, because can't miss a shot of Sean Connery's legs in this movie. And he jumps in the water, and turns out he's got another jetpack.
That shoots yellow.
Yeah, so there's like some type of yellow exhaust coming out of his underwater jetpack.
Which makes sense, because the viewer needs to recognize Bond regardless of the short shorts and the fact that he's wearing this behemoth of a thing on the back of his
Right.
rhino.
So Bond goes in and joins the fight, starts...
Really mucking stuff up.
Yeah.
Really taking names.
Yeah, he does. And then there's a scene where he ditches the jetpack, and some people like follow him into this sunken wreck.
Yeah.
And he throws a grenade in there and blows them up. And then...
Our hero, man.
Right. And then you're sort of shown that the orange Navy SEALs have won, and they're taking people into custody and making everybody surface and stuff.
Yeah, and the battle's not over, and they
Right.
leave.
Number 2 is clearly shown getting away with 2 of his henchmen, and Bond sees this and he chases them onto
The disco.
the disco, yeah, which is the name of the yacht, which we haven't said yet, but that's
Yeah.
the name of number 2's yacht.
Which all the men wear disco shirts.
Correct. They do all say disco on them. They say the name of the boat on them. And they get on the boat, and there's fisticuffs. And this is where the really bad speed up scenes are.
I want to mention a couple things about this thing. First, the United States Coast Guard starts coming after them. There's a destroyer group.
Oh, yeah, that
And
happens.
they can't run away fast enough, so they ditch the Cocoon.
Correct. That's what it's called.
And that crew of the Cocoon fights to the death.
Literally.
Yeah, for some reason, which I found hilarious.
Right. Instead of just abandoning ship, they
fight to the death
they
for no
shoot
apparent
back
reason.
at this destroyer group and get blowed up.
Yes. And the captain of that section is like giving orders, and
Right.
they're trying. It's funny. But then Bond sneaks up onto the main compartment, which is now going really fast in the sped up footage, like you said.
Right.
Fisticuffs ensue.
Right.
Bond bludgeons a man to death with headphones.
Sure does.
I love that. I don't know why I like
And
that.
a chair.
He-
And he hits some guy with a door a couple times and then tosses him overboard.
And they do actually show that to their credit. The thing I found funny is another bottle of champagne shows up, but he doesn't use that as a weapon.
He doesn't use it as a weapon because Bond respects champagne too much. God forbid you spill the champagne.
God. And, well, I mean, he didn't get to use his feet to test its temperature yet.
Right. So Bond basically beats up all the baddies. Oh, and all the while this fight is happening, whoever's not involved in the fight is steering the boat away from these rocks
Yeah.
that are just all about. And then eventually number 2 gets the drop on Bond with a gun, is about to shoot him, and then keels over dead, and you see Domino walking up the stairs with
Spear gun.
in her hand because she was let out by our presumably
Bespectacled man.
second, Jamaican McThird Wheel.
Yeah, except in like so third wheel doesn't necessarily have to have a romantic interest in the woman. But,
Right. He just has to be
there.
Yeah.
But he's definitely the third part of a triangle that gets introduced way late, and neither of the other two people in the triangle know they're in a
Know
triangle.
that they're in a triangle. So then they, the way that number 2's body falls, he jams the steering,
Yep.
which Bond can't figure out how to fix.
Yeah.
Because pulling the body away from the wheel wasn't an easy enough solution. Bond just tries to steer with the body in the way and says, "Nope, steering's jammed."
I hate to say this, you could speed up one motor and shut down another motor, and turn the boat that way.
Whatever. So they abandon ship, and Bond gives the guy the life preserver from the boat.
Okay,
and
that's how.
tosses him off because the guy says he can't swim. Bond tosses him off, and then he and Domino jump off, but only. So then there's another.
Yeah, there's like a B-17
Yeah, that
Fortress.
drops this inflatable raft.
Flying Fortress, sorry.
But only Bond and Domino get on the raft.
Yeah, that's pretty
You
great.
don't know what happened to the other guy.
No, he's just out there. He's shark bait. Oh, we didn't mention the fact that the sharks were part of this battle too.
Oh yeah, the sharks were definitely part of this battle.
And that's where they actually shoot a shark.
Right. I didn't even see that. I saw the parts getting
Bounced off.
off.
Yeah. But eventually one goes in and the shark kind of does like a half turn, turns into a croissant for a moment, and
man.
bleeds.
I didn't even see that.
Shark blood.
I didn't see that. Anyway, so then they have this balloon blimp thing that's attached to Bond's
It says something really weird on it.
wetsuit. Yeah, it says
Something between the arrows.
something about arrows. And it's like the camera does like a close up on this thing, so you're supposed to
Notice.
I don't know, you're supposed to notice it, but I don't know why.
Yeah, it's like earlier one of the nukes said handle like eggs.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
It did, but why? I mean, I get it. You
But
gotta keep it in the
this
refrigerator.
shot makes no sense. It's just I don't know. It didn't make any sense why they showed that.
No, and then
But then so he attaches it to the back of his wetsuit.
and I thought we were gonna have another Bond film ending with a sex scene in a boat. It was
did.
so close.
Right. It was close. This is the first Bond film that we've had that didn't end with a sex scene because so the bomber comes back around, or the plane comes back around with this nose cone fork thing to pick up them, which I understand that technology, but here's the thing. This is attached to Bond's neck. And if you got picked up by a plane moving that fast and this thing was attached to your neck, it would snap you in half. And also, Domino is not attached to anything. She's just holding on to Bond and he's holding on to her. There is no way human grip strength would be able to stand up to this. But that's how the movie ends, is just them being reeled up into the plane. It's the plane flying away and says the end.
Does it say the end?
Yeah, it says the end.
Unlike the last film.
The last film,
Didn't say that.
yeah, it didn't say the end because it cut to an ending credits scene.
Yeah.
This one did say the end, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's it. That's all I've got to say.
Thunderball.
Thunderball.
So, there was something else I wanted to say about it. No, it's just the handle with eggs.
This
Handle like eggs. Handle with eggs.
Just the thing that makes Thunderball stand out is just how overtly sexual it was. Just almost every line that Bond says to a woman is sexual in nature.
This is true. This is very true. One thing I also noticed is that my memory of this film was that they were scuba diving on like a B-17 bomber or B-52 bomber, and that's clearly not. It's this weird British Vulcan thing. I like how I look at it with disdain because it's British. That's a joke, by the way. But there was indeed a B-17 in the film, which was kind of cool. So,
Sure.
Yeah. Really beautifully polished one, too.
The next Bond film we're watching.
Bond carried a PPK.
Oh, he did.
Bond carried a PPK that went off on its own.
Yeah, he drops it. There's a scene where he drops the PPK and it goes off.
Yeah, which, by the way, is a thing. Older PPKs were known to do that. Also, gun advice right now. Don't keep your pump-action shotguns with a round in the chamber. Because even if they're on safety, if you drop it, it will go off. It's a design of pump-action shotguns for some reason. So if you're keeping it for home defense, sadly, don't keep a round in the chamber.
Podcast is entertaining and educational.
All right. So, what's the next film?
You Only Live Twice?
Ooh.
I just looked it up and completely forgot. You Only Live Twice is the next one.
There was also Endangerment of Octopuses.
Oh yeah, there was octopus in the
Single octopus.
what's it called? The final battle underwater.
Yeah,
scene.
just hanging out, chilling on some guy's mask.
PETA's got to really hate the Bond films.
Yeah, there's so much going against the Bond films. But anyway, until next time, dear listener, see you out there.